Excellent. All right, let's, without any further ado, let's introduce our first speaker, who Michelle Hung is the founder of what is called the Sassy Investor, an advocate for financial literacy. She is on a mission to spread the word of the importance of financial independence and how to achieve it. In 2014, she obtained the Charter Financial Analyst, which is, for my youth out there, she's super smart. That's all you need to know. Realizing that the lack of resources out there for those that would like to learn to invest, she founded the Sassy Investor to make it easy for people to understand finance and most importantly, how to execute. Please help me welcome Michelle.
Welcome, Michelle.
Yeah, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for the introduction. Really excited to be here today discussing the topic of kids and money. Yeah, always fun and interesting.
Talk to us about the brainchild of the Sassy Investor.
Yeah, sure. So I started off working in investment banking and venture capital. Like I've lived and breathed finance for like forever, pretty much. And one of the most common questions I've always been asked was, what should I invest in? And realizing that there are very few resources out there, especially for women, definitely for kids. I want to be someone that changed that and provided more resources that would educate people on how to invest, how to teach them how to get their money working for them so they don't end up working for the rest of their lives.
Excellent. So what have you learned along the journey?
Well, a lot of this is, as you mentioned, like this isn't taught in school. And from what I've gathered, what I've learned was it was just all based on experiences and some harsh life lessons. So it's been pretty wild, and I really wanted to, take my experiences, take my knowledge, my education, transform that into something that's easily digestible for everyone, so that they don't make the same mistakes I made. And if I can help younger kids learn all this, that would be even better.
Well, Michelle, if you had the opportunity, if there's somebody watching right now, they may be in their early 20s, they really don't have the vision for what they want to accomplish yet, but they're going, I do need to invest. What's the first step you recommend they take?
First step is to educate themselves. I can't stress how important it is to, educate themselves on the risks of investing, because there's a lot of false information out there. There's a lot of myths out there, and that scares people. So one of the things I really wanted to address today was risk. And I think this attribute is shaped pretty early on in life. They're actually pretty instinctive and natural. So if I may, I want to tell a story about like my experience with teaching a group of seventh graders financial literacy. So I was teaching a full day class full of seventh graders, and the full day activity, it required kids to work in groups. So I let nature take its course and allowed them to form their own groups, for a reason being I wanted this experience to be fun for them. I wanted to associate fun with learning about money, learning about financial literacy, but I also wanted to monitor their behavior in the most natural way as possible, which means creating a safe place for them to learn and interact with their classmates. I wanted them to be comfortable in the groups they were in. So naturally, the girls congregated in their own groups, the boys formed their own groups, so there were no mixed gender groups, pretty typical 12-year-old behavior. And throughout the day, the kids were able to earn and win money by completing tasks, participating and winning contests. The money they earned and accumulated would be used towards the stock market game as the last activity. So based on the level of shouting and screaming, I can say that the stock market game was certainly the highlight of their day. Not surprisingly, the boys were the most rambunctious and they took on the most risk. Okay, so as soon as they made money once on a stock pick, okay, after one win, they were ready to go all in, okay, because they wanted to win the game. They understood the concept of go big or go home, risk everything, even when there is very little left. One group of girls started the stock market game with the most amount of money. They had accumulated the most amount of money throughout the day, and they ended up being the most risk averse. Okay, they didn't care to win money. Okay, they were just concerned about preserving what they had. Okay, they didn't want to lose money. They were so scared of losing their hard-earned money that they barely invested anything. They barely played the stock market game. It was along the lines of maybe they had like $5,000 in play money to start with, and the size of their investments would be like $20 at a time, or they chose not to make an investment at all. At the end of the day, it was the group of boys, despite starting with less money than girls, they ended up with the most amount of money. The risk the boys took paid off. And this is very consistent with adult women and men. Men are more inclined to take risks, whereas women are not. And it's problematic with women because they eventually miss out on so much earnings potential, on passive income. Women live longer, they risk outliving their money. So in order for them to reach their retirement goals or any of their financial goals, they have to have their money working for them. So like the irony is there's a lot of risk with not taking enough risk on their part. So that's one of the things, like, I think it's super important for kids to understand is risk. For boys, you don't have to go all in and risk everything. And for women, for girls, you have to step up and take, some risk. Otherwise you risk even more at the end of the day.
I think what you're saying, another way to say it is like the highest risk there is taking no risk at all, right?
Exactly.
Michelle, what do you think of the tools that are available today? There's that new platform that's getting a lot of traction, the Robinhood, where people can go online and be very aggressive and do things. I know it's a lot in the press, and many kids are actually opening up accounts. What do you say to today's youth that are buying and selling securities?
I think it's great that the resources are available. But again, however, they have to understand the risks that are involved. I mean, I think like we heard of, that boy that was tinkering with Robinhood and he committed suicide because, he thought that he owed a lot of money because he was playing around with options. So, the education part is so important, which is, I built my entire business based on like financial education, especially around investing, because there are so many misconceptions around investing. So like providing these resources, these platforms is great, but it cannot be without the education there. So I think it's on these companies as well to help educate the people that are using it. And, a few disclaimers here and there, I don't think that's enough. It has to be, even like providing courses with their platforms, or just, having a channel, like a YouTube channel or whatever it is, providing the educational resources for them before they start investing their money is really important. They just really have to understand the downside risks. Okay, that's the most important. Everything else in life, everything else is upside risk. We don't have to worry about that. No one ever worries about making too much money. It's how much money they can potentially lose that's the problem.
You have a workbook that kind of walks people through this educational process. Can you kind of show us that? Where do we get that? I think it's fascinating how you've graphically made a complex world simple.
Yeah, sure. So I wrote The Sassy Investor. It's geared towards women, and I wanted to make it fun for them. Working, in investment banking, Wall Street, and working with a lot of working with like products and being around like so many financial concepts. Like I studied finance in school, like did my CFA, I worked in investment banking, just so much financial concepts that like I've taken in. And, and I realized that a lot of people could benefit some of this information. And I've read a lot of finance investment books as well. And, some of them, I have to admit, they're kind of boring. And if I find them boring, I can't imagine anyone else without a financial background, how they would see it. So creating something that's fun, and engaging. It's like a workbook as well, and understanding that a lot of people need to execute, not just digest information, but I want them to execute. So this book was written based on bridging the gap between education and execution, showing them step by step what they need to know and what they need to do so that they can put their money to work and start investing. So that was basically how the Sassy Investor book was born. Can grab a copy online on Amazon, and hopefully people it'll be a great first step. It's a great beginner's investing book.
What type of feedback have you gotten? You also have an app, correct?
I don't have an app, no. I have online courses.
Okay.
But the feedback I got from the book was it's all positive, and it's easy to digest, it's entertaining. Mainly it's easy to digest and it's fun. It's very colorful. I've had people mistaken it for a children's book, which I'm totally okay with. My goal was to make it different from all the other investing books out there. So whether it's a 19-year-old picking it up or a 50-year-old picking it up, it's information that's useful, that they can carry on, carry on with them for the rest of their lives, and pass on that knowledge to future generations.
Do you have a copy of it there with you? You can show.
Oh yeah. Right here.
Show our audience.
Mm-hmm. So
excellent.
Very colorful, and I do cover a few things that are generally not covered in, I guess typical beginner investing books, because my background is in investment banking. That I've done venture capital. I've worked through a lot of valuations of companies. I do give a little bit of an overview on how to value a company as well, because I work a lot with entrepreneurs, and understanding how to value a business. I think it's very important, even if you're not picking your own stocks. But one day, if as a business owner, for any entrepreneur out there, one day you're going to have to exit your business. So eventually you have to figure out what the value of your business is. So I also included those concepts in my book.
So Michelle, given that so many women do have a lack of confidence, which I find too, I work with a lot of women, they have a lack that I'm not good enough, or I can't take the risk. Do you recommend that women form investment groups together and learn together?
Absolutely. Just, being able to create that space where we can openly talk about investing, just because I've been so used to being in boardrooms with men working in finance. My entire career, I was often a minority, and it's very intimidating. So being able to, have that safe space to talk about things that are foreign, and allowing them to ask any type of question, I think it's really important, and that'll encourage them to learn more. That'll encourage them to ask questions and not be afraid to, just ask those important questions. Because we're often very critical of ourselves, and wonder, is that a dumb question? I'm afraid to ask. So I have that policy with all my clients and all my students. It's ask me anything. No question is ever too dumb or too stupid. Please ask, because you'll never know, someone else is probably thinking of the same question.
Yeah, part of the success of the stock market game is the fact that it's fun. It's on paper, of course. They're not really losing real money, but they have the opportunity to work together. And so I have a lot of clients that I recommend they have their friends form investment clubs together to learn together, because it makes it fun. So
exactly, yeah.
Well, I'll ask you in closing to both of you, what do you think of the concept in terms of invest in what you know? So we'll go back to a premise that Peter Lynch, who ran Fidelity Magellan said, look around, and for the kids, I mean, think about that. So, who on this call has an iPhone? Okay, so you can buy Apple stock. Who here has an account at Snapchat or Instagram, which is owned by Facebook? And so it's a way that. What do you think about that?
Well, it levels their interest up. They're more interested in it because it's something that they know and love. Parents, they want stock in Disney when they're teenagers because they've been there and they love it. And so that allows their passion and their knowledge, and they're more excited about doing the research related to it because it's something they care about. It's not something mom and dad are telling them to do, something that they choose that they want to do. So it definitely helps. Even adults, I tell, what are you interested in? Be investing in something that you care about.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I absolutely agree. And one of the things I teach my audience, how to view investing in these companies, what is, these are things that we buy on a day-to-day basis. The stock markets are comprised of all the companies that we're familiar with. Okay, like anytime, we shell out our wallets and make a purchase, whether it's at McDonald's or Starbucks, the clothes that we wear, the cars that we drive. Investing in the stock markets is, taking an invested interest in your day-to-day life. We're already feeding profits to them, so we might as well get some of it back. So I tell them, hey, it's like getting a lifelong discount on everything else that you're buying already. So you might as well get some of it back. So that's one way to spin it when I teach investing. And certainly if people want to, go about picking their own stocks, of course, it increases their level of interest with companies that they're familiar with. But also, investing doesn't have to be, difficult, especially if you do decide to pick your own stocks. It starts with being familiar with the company. So if you recognize that brand, you know how they make money, it's a great start, because the last thing you want to do is invest in something you don't know, something you don't understand. And that's how, people can lose a lot of money on things that they're not familiar with.
It's the same in real estate. When you want to go investing in real estate, you want to focus on one type of investment to get the system down, to learn it so you're successful and you repeat it. Rinse and repeat to build your portfolio. And then you get to the certain level, then you might be able to go to another type of real estate. But too many people go out there and go, well, I want apartments, I want a 3-2, I want commercial. And they, all of those are very different investment models. So
invest in what you know. Michelle, what's the one or two items as we wrap up that you want all the youth on this program to really kind of take away?
Start early, start young, start learning how prioritize your savings, start prioritizing your investments. Invest in yourself, okay? Like Sharon mentioned, real estate, stocks, but you yourself as well. You're like human capital. Read books, educate yourself, because you yourself, like investing in your education, is adding value to yourself, to your future self. Especially if one day you want to, build a business, right? Businesses are like income generating assets as well. So start early, educate yourself, and of course, for parents, if you don't teach your kids how to manage their money, someone else will, and they could be very harsh life lessons. Just like Sharon, your son, who racked up a lot of credit cards. I did the same thing when I was young. My parents didn't teach me about money. I ended up learning from a colleague how to use credit cards, and his way of using a credit card was maxing it out and then paying it off with the paycheck. So that's how I was introduced to credit cards. So needless to say, I ran into a little bit of credit card trouble when I was younger. So, educate. Again, if parents don't educate, someone else will.
Well, Michelle, thank you for being on. So it's sassyinvestor.com. Is that how we...
.ca. Yeah, thesassyinvestor.ca. Okay,
sassyinvestor.ca. Well, Michelle, thank you so much.
Thank you
For joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
And we wish you nothing but success.
Thank you so much.